Well, hello there, YouTubers. This is the Phoenix, and today I'll be showing you the builds that I currently run, posts, updates, nerfs, whatever you want to call it, since a lot of you guys are curious as to what I actually run right now. So let's get right down to it. If you're not familiar with the 0, 10, 0, 30, 30 trait build that I posted in the beginning of November, I will re-emphasize it over again and why I actually picked these traits, and then go into explaining why I use another build as opposed to this one currently right now. To get right down to it, the 0, 10, 0, 30, 30 refer to the points allocated in each of the trait lines. So for the first one, Air 1, this applies Fury and Swiftness to Auroras, which is the Air 3 ability, the Water 4 ability, and the Fire 4 plus Earth 3 ability as well, or combo. And this has actually been nerfed recently in the beginning of the March updates. Originally, Shocking Aurora would apply 10 seconds of Swiftness and Fury without considering boon duration, and now it is only 5 seconds, so it's not as effective as it used to be for this trait. It still is useful, not as great. For the water trait line, I put 30 points in here, and for the minor trait, you can either have the third trait, which would be Soothing Disruption, which grants you regeneration and vigor. This has actually been nerfed as well in the beginning of the March updates. It used to apply 10 seconds of regeneration and vigor, but now it's only 6 seconds, so it's not as effective as it used to be. And for the fifth trait, this just removes conditions whenever you swap to water attunement, which is definitely useful. There's also the alternative, having arcane abatement, which reduces your fall damage by 50%. It's also important to note that the water fall down spell does not actually work. It's still been bugged for about 1 or 2 months, and it doesn't do anything. Also, for arcane abatement, there's actually no cooldown on any of the spells when you fall down, so that's an important note to make. For the final trait line, the water tree, you can either choose Cleansing Water for more soul type style gameplay, and this works in conjunction with the Water 3 trait on your cantrips, because it grants you regeneration, and this removes conditions whenever you grant regeneration. So you're removing conditions whenever you use a cantrip. And this also works in conjunction with swapping to water attunement if you use the elemental attunement trait line as well, because this grants you regeneration upon swapping to water attunement. So if you combine this trait with the fifth trait, you're actually removing 2 conditions every time you swap to water attunement. Alternatively, you can also use the Water 12 trait line, which is Powerful Auroras, which shares Auroras to nearby allies. And this works up to 5 people around you, including yourself. And that only works on the Shocking Aurora and the Frost Aurora. And the Frost Aurora, it does not actually apply to Ring of Fire or the Ring of Fire plus Magnetic Grasp combo for this trait line. It's also important to know when you use Powerful Auroras, you're also sharing the Zephyr's boon buff as well, so that's useful swiftness and fury to your allies. For the Arcana tree line, Elemental Attunement is a very useful trait to have. It gives you 5 seconds of any of these traits here: Fire for might, Water for regeneration, Air for swiftness, Earth for protection. And if you have full boon duration gear, it's actually 8 seconds long for each of them. So Fire right here, Water 8 seconds of regeneration, 8 seconds of swiftness, and then 8 seconds of protection. The protection is definitely one of the most useful ones to have and to use in particular. For the next trait line, Renewing Stamina, this trait grants you vigor upon criticaling, and it's actually been nerfed once again in the sort of February updates. It used to be 10 seconds, if I recall correctly, on a 33% chance from a critical hit with no internal cooldown. Now it's 5 seconds. Well, actually, now it's the duration I believe is about 6 to 7 seconds, and has an internal cooldown of 5 seconds, but it has a guaranteed hit. For me, this trait nerf hasn't really affected me much. It's still fairly easy to maintain permanent vigor with the renewing stamina in conjunction with the cantrips that grant you vigor as well. So to me, this nerf really hasn't changed much. The last trait is one of the best traits in the game. Evasive Arcana is beyond useful. It creates a spell, a unique spell for each of the four attunements, with an internal cooldown of 10 seconds on each spell, and it's made such that you can't use the same spell and accidentally not get the effect again if you're swapping attunements. So that's nice. And the water spell is definitely the most useful one. It's the exact same spell as Cleansing Wave, which has a 40-second cooldown. So you're getting a 1.8k heal just by dodging in water attunement, which is really useful. The fire gives you a flame burst, which does point blank AoE damage, around 500 damage with some burning damage to it. Not that great. Air, if you dodge near anyone with air, you get a AoE blind on all enemies, and that lasts about 5 seconds for one attack. Earth, the animation of the dodge looks very similar to Turning Earth, but the effects are very similar to Ring of Earth. So this is an overview of the 010, 030, 30 spec. If you're not familiar with it already, or have not read my guides, or have not really looked into it, this is what it is. This is the DD build that mostly everyone runs. It's also important to note that this allocation of points is also useful for all different weapon types, whether it be for staff, scepter dagger, scepter focus, dagger focus, you name it. Any weapon you want to run, this spec is useful. Alright, so now on to the next spec that I sometimes run. Alright, for this spec, instead of having 10 points in air, you have 10 points in earth. And for the 10 points in earth, you have Earth's Embrace, which grants you Armor of Earth at 50% HP. I can't remember if it's actually 50% HP or if it's still bugged and approximately actually about 30 to 40% HP. There's also a chance if you get killed so fast before this even activates that it won't activate. That's just an important note to make. For the water trait lines and the Arcana trait lines, it's exactly the same thing, with a little bit more emphasis on soothing the disruption. You definitely want to take that since this is a cantrip. And the Earth's Embrace is also the the Armor of Earth given from this trait line is exactly the same as the utility that you can pick out. So it's definitely really useful. And again, trait lines exactly the same. So in comparison with this to the 010, 030, 30 spec, you're gonna have a hard time maintaining swiftness. And if you're roaming in World vs. World or in PvP, this will make things a lot more difficult. So for this spec, I kind of look more into optimizing the attunements that I use. So for instance, if I want to maintain swiftness, I will minimize the amount of time that I'm actually in air attunement, and that way my cooldown will be much quicker for the air swiftness buff from this trait line, from the elemental attunement trait line.
I could outrun a centaur.
So on to the next spec, the one that I currently use. So instead of the 0010 30 30 spec, this is 0020 20 30. So for the earth earth trait, I use Geomancer's Freedom, which allows you to recover from crippled, immobilization, chilled much faster. I'll explain why exactly I picked this later when I discuss armors and runes and consumables. So for the water now, you're sacrificing 10 points right here, and the big disadvantage of this build compared to other builds is that you're sacrificing a great deal of DPS. This trait right here, the water 25 trait, is one of the most useful DPS traits you can have. 2% more damage for each boon on you. It's really easy to get boons on Elementalist. I get approximately 5 to 6 boons on all the time. That's an effective 10% more damage. And for the water trait line, you are sacrificing one of these two traits, mostly the cleansing water, so you are having a much harder time removing conditions when you're applying cantrips or solving to water attunement. So I'm actually balancing off that condition removal onto this Geomancer's Freedom trait, and I'll explain more later onto again why I'm using it. So let's go into the traits for this. Soothing Disruption and Arcane Abatement. And Arcana is exactly the same as the previous specs, and this is again very similar to 0, 0, 10, 30, 30 spec. You're going to have a problem maintaining swiftness, and you want to minimize time you're in air attunement. Also, I haven't mentioned this before, Fury is also another issue without having that air trait line right here, because you no longer get Fury and Swiftness upon applying Auroras. So for that, whenever I want to burst, I usually control the attunements that I use. So whenever I'm attacking, I'll use that 3 seconds of Fury right here, granted by a combination of Arcane Fury plus boon duration from the Arcana tree line, and also from
You've got gold, right?
consumables, or actually not consumables, from runes on the armor. Alright, so these are the three traits, or the three builds that I currently run. 0, 10, 0, 30, 30, 0, 0, 10, 30, 30, 0, 0, 20, 20, 30. Now on to the actual armor and gear that I use. Alright, so for the most part I use mostly the same armor, runes, weapons, etc. for all weapon types, or for all build types. So for stats, I run power, precision, toughness. I think this is much more effective than power, vitality, toughness, or power, toughness, healing power. There are a lot of debates on what's the most effective stat combination to have, and I think this is the most effective stat combination to have. Just in general for min-maxing your build or having the most optimal defense and offense. So all power, precision, toughness here for the armor, and then for the runes, 2 superior runes of monks for the 15% additional boon duration, and then 2 superior runes of water for another additional 15% boon duration for a total of 30% boon duration. And then for the last two, you can either go 2 superior rune of melon juice for minus 10 condition duration, or you can go 2 major runes of water, which is additional 10% boon duration. I'm going with melon juice just because I'm going with the 0, 0, 20, 20, 30 spec. And to give you a better feel for why I actually picked that trait line right here, you recover 33% faster for cripple, immobilization, chill. The thing with this is you can actually stack condition duration, or you can stack recovering from condition duration faster. So what I'm saying is you can actually use a a certain type of food that actually reduces your condition duration by 40% for all conditions. And this 40% actually stacks with the 10% on the superior rune of Melendrew. So there's a 50% condition removal for all conditions, whether you're talking about bleeding, burning, bleeding, burning, blindness, anything you want. And then that actually combines with the 33% cripple, immobilization, chill, recovering faster. So you recover cripple, immobilization, chill 83% faster, because you're adding 50% from the 40% here and the 10% here, along with the 33% here. So 80% reduction in these three ailments is incredibly useful. One of the banes of being a DD elementalist is you tend to die a lot from these three conditions. Being immobilized or having your mobility impaired is one of the easiest ways to get killed, and mobility is key as a DD elementalist. So this is why I chose this trait line. Now onto the rest of the gear that I'm currently using. I'm using the incinerator, which is power, toughness, vitality. Honestly, I prefer power, precision, toughness. That's all with the knight stats. Once again, it is incredibly useful, at least in my opinion. And for the two sigils I'm using superior sigil of bloodlust, which is plus 10 power for each foe you kill. The reason why I chose bloodlust instead of plus 10 condition damage per kill or plus 10 precision per kill, I did statistical analysis and math. Power is definitely the most useful to have, and condition damage does not scale with crit damage or precision. Power, precision, and crit damage all work together in parallel, which is why I chose power. For the offhand, I chose superior sigil of battle, which is 3 stacks of might for 20 seconds. That's not including boon duration. It's actually about 30 seconds including boon duration. Whenever you swap to the weapon in combat, when it says swap to the weapon in combat, that actually refers to swapping to attunement in combat. And it's very easy to achieve 9 stacks of might at almost any given time as an elementalist when you're in combat, because you're swapping attunements really frequently without having to think about it. And that's a great thing. And for accessories, I'm going more for crit damage on the accessories. There was a Reddit optimization thread detailing why crit damage is more important to have on accessories, because you're getting the most bang for your buck. In this case, power, toughness, and crit damage is the best stat combination on back items. And for the other items, I'm going for more plus all stats, because again, you get the most bang for your buck, and also you have a lot of toughness based on these other stats on other armor and weapons already anyways. So again, once again, plus all stats on pretty much every item. You can alternatively go for power, toughness, and crit damage, or power, precision, crit damage if you want to change it up a little bit. For me, I like power, toughness, and crit damage. I could have gone power, precision, crit damage if I want to go for more DPS. The same actually applies to weapons as well. Occasionally I'll swap up to power, precision, crit damage on my weapons. So I have just a lot of weapons in my arsenal. All depends on what I want to do, and it's always good to have a scepter and a focus in case you want to change it up, or in case you're in a different situation and it calls for that specific weapon type. For instance, focuses are used commonly for their air 4 ability against siege attacks, and also for invulnerability in case you want to revive somebody. So that's an important note to make. And then staff, you kind of always have to have a staff. Staff is just extremely useful in every situation. I'm using in this case the legend. Power, precision, crit damage is definitely one of the most useful stats you can have in terms of weapons. Again, I did the analysis on this. This is just what you should get. And for my underwater weapons, I kind of arbitrarily picked them, and I haven't really updated it. They're kind of crappy. You can get this underwater apparatus in ore, I believe. And this is the best stats you can get, or the best total stats you can have. And then for the trident, you should probably pick power, precision, and crit damage, and then superior sigil and might for the +3 stacks of might when you're ever swapping the attunement. Now to go into the actual stats that I have. So my power is pretty decent at 1600. You can bolster that up with the 25 stacks of might. The 25 stacks of might the 25 stacks of bloodlust from the superior sigil bloodlust. So that's an additional 250 power. You can also chain that up with superior sharpening stone for an additional 160, and also stacking might from combining fired fields with blast finishers, and you can bolster your power to 2,700 if I recall correctly, and the attack can go up to 3,800. So that's always nice to know. Then you can bolster up your damage really heavily if you actually try. For toughness, I have 1900 just because I am running the 0020-20-30 setup, and I'm getting that 200 additional toughness. That's why it's so high. Vitality is something you want to pick that you're comfortable with. For me, I like my HP around somewhere between 15 to 17k right now. You want enough HP such that you don't get bursted down from thieves or mesmers, etc., and such that you'll have a fighting chance. For condition damage, in my opinion, is not really that useful. It's not essential to survival, and power is definitely much more better than condition damage. For boon duration, 30% comes from the 30 Arcana tree line, and the other 30% that I currently have is from the 15% right here with the superior runes of monks, and then 15% from the 2 superior runes of waters. Additionally, you could have gone for another 10% more using 2 major runes of water, so you could have gone up to 70%. And crit damage is 37% damage plus 50% damage, because there is a base 50 you have to add on to it. So every time I crit, I do 180% whatever the normal damage was. And crit chance is 23%, plus another 20% if you have Fury on. And armor is directly related to how much toughness you have. Health related to vitality, condition duration, I don't really need that. It's fairly easy to apply a lot of condition damage with burning and bleeding from churning earth and Drake's breath. Healing power is definitely a useful stat to have. I know a lot of people don't like using it. The reason why is Elementalists get the most return out of any other class for healing power. It's especially useful to note that you get a 1-to-1 return per stat point on swapping to water attunement with your water 15 trait line. So every stat, or every 1 point of healing power, grants you 1 more HP healed when swapping to water attunement. This also applies to cleansing wave. So every 1 additional point, every 1 additional power, 1 additional healing power in this healing power trait line, you get 1 more point healed for cleansing wave. And again, cleansing wave is actually related to evasive arcana as well. Every time you dodge roll, you grant yourself cleansing wave. So there is a lot of return when it comes to healing power. for an elementalist, and that also applies to regeneration that you grant yourself, the cone of cold that you use, just regeneration by itself through casting spells on your minor water 5 trait line, and also regeneration granted through casting cantrips in combination with your seeing disruption trait line. So that's always useful to know. And that is actually it for my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be uploading future content on more strategy-based applications for the Elementalist. This was just a this was just describing the builds I currently run post updates, since everyone's always curious on what exactly I use. And again, for future videos, I will upload more strategy type content. What you should look for in battle, how to become an effective player as an elementalist for both solo content and team content, how to effectively utilize terrain to its full extent, how to use weapons like the Fire Greatsword, how to use specialized combinations of spells and underwater combined with land spells. I'll detail that in future content. I hope you guys look forward to that, and thank you for watching this video.